Sarah Cookler, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate your time here with Skimo Gold. Let's maybe start with a bit of your background, whether that's Skimo, maybe your own childhood, your history as an athlete. I know that you've competed here and there and everywhere. Get into that before we kind of get into your current work as head of sport with USA Skimo Association.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Travis. As far as where to start with a background, but in a lifetime of skiing. But I grew up in northern Vermont,
Yeah.
doing all sorts of skiing, but primarily focused in the Nordic realm. Downhill skied with my family all the
Mm.
time, but I was a Nordic racer as a high school athlete. Made my way out west, ended up in the Pacific Northwest for college, but then back in Utah after that for more skiing, grad school, and the rest of my life thus far. So certainly my pathway through ski mountaineering got into the sport with our local kind of, I think they were always Tuesday night races. Started with some of the
Mm.
original athletes of Andy and Jason DeRay, Jared Newey, Tom Goth, that crew. So I got into it that way, and that progressed from fatter skis down to skinnier skis, and exploring the race circuit from there. Certainly raced my best. I was never the top of the game at all, but enjoyed racing both domestically and had a few opportunities to race internationally with the U.S. team at the World Championships. And then in 2015 is when I made a switch to coaching, and that came by just kind of came by the way. I was training myself still, but then there were a few athletes in our neighborhood. We live in a small community up in the mountains who wanted to get into it. So I started that. And from there, the Silver Fork Skimo team blossomed into what it is now. And we have 60 athletes on our team, 9 coaches, and sending 13 athletes to the World Championships next month. So my coaching career has blossomed from there. In the midst, I had a kid and went to grad school. And I then, as of last year, took a job as the head of sport for the national organization for US Ski Mountaineering Association. So hopefully that's a quick rundown of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
pathway to here.
Yeah, no, that's great, and yeah, I mean, to say it all, that's we're talking there, whatever, 20 years of
Yeah.
dedication, commitment, slogging it out, getting out in the cold, many times I'm sure when you didn't feel like it, but it's awesome. Like that is what I'm hearing there, Sarah, is consistency, and it's super cool. With Masters, just out of curiosity, is that sport related? Was it something else? What was the area?
My master's degree or my
Yeah.
grad school?
Yep.
Oh, in
Yeah.
medicine.
Okay.
I went to PA school, physician assistant school at the University of
Oh,
Utah,
nice.
and worked in the emergency room for the past decade prior to making this switch, which is a big switch, but it's exciting. I'm happy
Yeah.
to take a step away from that role, from medical role for a while, and maybe follow my passion a little bit.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, I would think that PA school and then the work, there's probably some relevance to coaching, to being with people, to being under pressure. Physiology, of course. Do you find crossovers there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think they complement each other in all sorts of ways. I'm happy to have a medical background, working with a bunch of kids when we're skiing, in the dark and
Yeah.
skiing up and down. We haven't had any big accidents, knock on wood, but I've done my fair share of minor medical procedures in the field.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, as far as I think working in the emergency room does give you that level of uh, multitasking and
Mm.
being able to focus on different things at different times, and the ability to handle stress. all of which I think can be relevant in a racing atmosphere, a coaching atmosphere, day-to-day
Yeah.
life. um,
Yeah.
but I think ski mountaineering or skimo racing, there's a huge mental component to it.
Mm.
And I think we're seeing that, especially with these shorter distance races. Not to say that the long distance races don't have that mental challenge and staying focused and pushing hard, but these shorter races, like the sprint and the mixed relay, have so many aspects, especially when it comes down to the transitions. Um,
Mm.
so many places where you have to perform under pressure and you have to perform quickly. Um,
Yes.
so I think that's a big element going forward in this sport is the mental preparation and the mental game with these disciplines.
Let's hear more about that, because that is definitely a personal interest of mine. And I was talking with Jessie Young, member of the
Mhm.
US Ski Mountaineering team, and she made that comparison. Like, this is kind of like biathlon. Then, those who don't know, it's basically Nordic skiing with shooting, and you're totally maxed out, or maybe you're not quite maxed out because you didn't ski as hard, so because you're saving your brain to be able to shoot well. Same kind of thing maybe with these transitions. Did you do any biathlon as a Nordic racer? And furthermore, I mean, give us the nuts and bolts, like those mental pieces. How do you nail these super intricate multi-step transitions, when you're literally at, max heart rate +3?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually did dabble in biathlon in
Nice.
high school because I lived very close to the Jericho firing range, which is in
Mm,
Jericho, Vermont, which is like the hub for the National Guard. Um,
yeah, I
and
love it.
I've actually been talking to one of the National Guard biathlon coaches, and how there could be some crossover athletes,
Yeah,
because there are so many parallels to exactly what you're talking about in biathlon. With how do you steady your heart rate as you come in? How do you refocus from going all out into a sedentary position? Skimo is similar in the sense that they're going all out and then having to come in and do these very intricate specified moves, not to mention also with a lot of
yeah.
dexterity. And obviously we lose
Hmm.
dexterity with the elements, with cold, with hypoxia, when you don't have enough oxygen in your brain and your muscles are fatigued. Then to ask your body to
Yep.
manipulate these skins coming out and flipping your bindings and remembering all the different aspects. Um, so for instance, in the mixed relay race, which is one of the Olympic disciplines, there are 6 different transitions per lap. And if we're talking, transition takes, maybe it's 10 seconds, maybe it's 20 seconds at the most. If you miss your transition or you only miss it by 5 to 10 seconds, that adds up significantly, right? So if you lose 40,
Yeah,
45 seconds over that lap, imagine trying to start running uphill 45 seconds behind your competitor. That's a huge difference,
yeah.
right? So spending a lot of time, I think that's what we're learning also on the World Cup. It's also something I've been learning in the coaching realm is here's an aspect of the
Mm,
sport that really everyone should be able to get on an equal playing field, right? Where like
mm,
whether you're a male, you're female, you're young, you're old, it's about repetitions. And from what we're learning is these other countries, whether they're Europeans or the Asian countries, particularly, are putting in a lot of reps. Uh, that's what it takes. Maybe they're standing in their
yeah.
garage doing this all summer for half an hour a day. And if they can
Mm,
get the the physical motions down, and that mental capacity, then when they add in the stress and the physical fatigue, hopefully they can still
mm.
make it happen.
Interesting. So practicing without the stress, then practicing maybe I could imagine under duress in the midst of all out intervals, like you said, in the cold, maybe in the heat. Sometimes you get to these things and you're like, wow, it's way hotter than usual. The skins and the glue behaves a little different. All those variables. And is it
Yeah.
just doing it over and over? Is it timing the transitions? Maybe I could imagine in in a team atmosphere, games, competition games, racing the transitions. What else? How else are you? What else are you throwing at these athletes? Because you're right, you got to be able to do it under pressure and
Mhm.
without thinking and nail it every single
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and there's actually even an added aspect to that because there's the pressure, the fatigue of you personally. But then if
Mm,
you do that under your personal stress, that's one element. But now you show up into the box, which is a confined area where if you step out, you get a penalty.
yep.
And then you add in your competitor who comes, skidding into a stop 1 second behind you, and you can hear the
Yeah.
hustle and bustle of them. And can you stay focused in what you're doing and not get distracted by your competitors? So
Mm,
certainly, yeah, you nailed it. Like as far as coaching goes, with our team, we practice transitions. We try to actually practice transitions year round, but I'm not there all the time. But when when
mm,
I in the winter when we have everyone on the snow, we practice transitions at the every practice,
hmm.
and we do it kind of solitary and practice the motions slowly first, so that you can get down the technique, and then we match them head to head, and time them, right? And so you come skiing into the box, you have to do the transition. We've got our stopwatches off, I mean on, and then they have the stress of trying to go fast, but also the stress of being in the confined box, managing your gear while someone next to you is also doing the same thing. And then added, we definitely add the peanut corral on the sides of yelling and whatever, throwing snowballs
Yeah,
to
yeah.
add
Little
extra
adversity,
stress.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Sarah, I'm thinking in my mind about other technique sports, like, for example, speed climbing, the latest new Olympic sport. It's super unique. It's really interesting. My understanding in speed climbing is, the wall is always the same, and there's basically an established technique or pattern of movement that pretty much everyone does, but then someone will change one little thing. They put the hand here, they jump past this one, like something changed and the times go down, and then everyone else starts doing that. In Skimo, are we seeing any of those things? I know the first time I saw like a double skin rip transition, and for those who don't know, this is like you're going uphill and now it's time to go downhill, and usually okay, let's take a step back. People go backcountry skiing. You get to the top and you hang out for 5 minutes and you drink your hot chocolate and you take your stuff off and you put your jacket on. That's like one level. My level is like I take skins off one by one, and it takes 10 seconds and I'm like, that was great. Whatever, 10 seconds. And then you watch the pros. I mean, it's like, I don't know, 2 seconds because they
Mhm.
pull both skins simultaneously. It's like a gymnastics move. And the first time I saw that, I was like, how is that? What are they doing? How is that even possible? And now it's what if you want to compete at the top level, like you have to do that. So are we seeing other things? Are people changing? Is there going to be a new thing? Is there going to be, and that could be transitions, but it could be uphill. It could be, more of a run and less of a hike. It could be more of a, Nordic style glide. Like, what are the developments? How are people pushing in the envelope and changing those techniques specifically?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of changes frequently, and I don't know if our country's been on the forefront of any of those changes, but more so
Mm,
watching adamantly and very closely
yeah.
on what's going on and seeing how we can do it. Um, I think that the double skin rip was certainly a game changing. Technique change, a number of years ago. It requires a lot of balance too,
Yeah. Yep.
flexibility, balance. Yeah, it's quite an athletic move. But now what you're seeing is not after they double rip. You may have noticed that nearly all of the skin suits have changed for
Yep.
the sprint and mixed relay, and now they have this external, we kind of describe as a kangaroo pocket.
Yeah.
So it's one
Yep.
external pouch that they can just pull open and dump their skins into. Because again, your skins can't be visible as you leave the transition
Yep.
box. There'll be a penalty. And prior to this, everyone unzipped their suits, put their skins in their suit, and zipped up. right? So maybe
Yep.
that takes like another 2 seconds, but every second counts. So I think the skin
Yeah.
suit's a big change. And then, so in a sprint, you're just using one pair of skins for your ascent, and then you rip them and you come down. But the mixed relay actually has 3 different climbs. You have your first climb with your skins on, then you rip them. And then you have your second climb with your skins. And then you have this third kind of very last transition where you need skins on. Uh, Oftentimes when we backcountry ski, we just have one pair of skins,
Yep.
and we fold them nicely and we put them in our jacket and we ski down and then we open them up again. So in this mixed relay, that would take too long. So now they're carrying multiple pairs of skins. Typically, they're carrying one pair of
Yep.
skins per ascent, and how they store them
Mm.
is really part of the game. So
Yeah.
we're seeing people, instead of folding them with the glue adhered to either side, and then you have to open the glue, like rip them apart and put them on. Now they're rolling them, right? So you
Mm.
can pull your skin out, and in one fell swoop, it like flings out of your pocket and unrolls in one motion, and then you can stick it on. So that's one
Yep.
technique that we're seeing. Um, and again,
Yep.
not everyone's doing that. Some are like offsetting their skins and still peeling them. But certainly everyone has like a different pair of skins for every ascent.
Mm. Yeah,
So
interesting. Yeah, the skin maintenance, I would say, if someone wants to get into skimo or you're working on it's such a skill heavy sport, which is fun. This isn't like, man, you can be a super fit runner or cyclist and
mhm.
and that's going to help you a lot, but it's not everything. And this is part of the fun is this intellectual, detail oriented side. But the skins are huge and I'm hearing especially at that high level people have many, many sets of skins, and they're maybe even testing that day and maybe even throughout the day, right? Which skin, what has better glide? You want as much glide as possible, but it's got to stick, too much glide. If the skin doesn't stick on the ground, you're sliding backwards. But
Yeah,
if
I
it's
think,
too sticky, it won't glide. How does that
yeah.
work? I mean, is each athlete testing their own stuff? Do we have, I don't know, do we have like the ski techs? Are
We
they out
do.
there testing the skins or something? Are they waxing the skins? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on with these climbing skins?
Yeah, I mean, really, here's another parallel to Nordic skiing. All the teams, including our team this year, we have a ski tech, and a
Hmm.
ski tech that prepares not only the skis but prepares the
Yeah.
skins.
Mm.
As you mentioned, right, this sport is as much about going uphill as it is down, if not more about going uphill. Um, so with the skins, they're different lengths, they're different widths,
Yep.
there's different brands that glide better on certain snow. Um, so that's one aspect, like which one do you choose? And that might be based on conditions, but also based on your technique, maybe your
Mm.
strengths and weaknesses. And then the skins can be prepared, right? So the skins are waxed
Yep.
for extra glide, depending on the conditions. They may even be like trimmed down. Even I think this is a new thing that we're seeing is
Yep.
even
Cutting them narrower,
minor
maybe. Yep.
like shaving of the hairs on the edges,
Hmm.
to
Yep.
even make them faster. Yeah, so skin maintenance and skin preparation is a really big part of the sport.
Interesting. At let's say at a World Cup event, does each athlete have their own, whatever? I brought 10 sets of skins, skin tech, can you get these ready? Or is there a team set, and then they just, they kind of give you which ones are best on that day. How does that work in Team USA?
No, everyone has their own skins.
Yeah.
And I think
Okay.
everyone's pretty partial to how their skins glide, how they rip apart
Mm.
and get put
Yep.
onto their skis. So as you know, all Skimo skis, their skins attach only on the tips, right? And then they run
Yep.
down. There's no tail clip. Um, but every brand of ski also has a slightly different notch at the
Little
top.
notch. Yeah.
So being familiar with how that notch fits with your skins and how you get it to be on there securely is really important. Um, and so some people might be more familiar with working with a certain brand of skin for their ski. Uh,
Yep.
in addition to just like their technique, right? And maybe somebody's a little bit wants a little bit more grip on the uphill for confidence of
Mm.
climbing
Hmm.
fast. So yes, everyone sticks with their own skins, and the ski tech prepares the skins for the athletes.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. How about ascending technique? Like if you haven't seen these races or you haven't done them, you just think, oh, you're hiking uphill, or even, your typical backcountry sort of enthusiast, you got this heavier stuff and you're just kind of slogging uphill. Like there's not, you're just going, like there's not a whole lot to it. If we look at this high end of the sport, I mean, on a given ascent, you could see five different techniques from one person based on what point in the race, what is the grade, are they trying to make a move, all that. What sort of range do we see of technique, and are we seeing any differences? Are we seeing, I can watch maybe an athlete like David Sinclair, who I think has a background in elite Nordic racing, like it, a lot of his race, he looks like he's doing a classic Nordic race and it looks smooth. It's beautiful, you know? Like, are we seeing a lot of that? Are we seeing any changes along the way?
Yeah, I think we are. And I think what the difference is between, we go out for a backcountry tour and we lock into our pace, and that's what it is. You could probably
Yeah.
play a song to it and it's just a nice rhythm.
Yep.
Whereas if you look at other, the more of the racing side, part of it is the gear, right? So if you've got these super featherweight carbon boots that have ankle flex that allows you to essentially just run, we see varying techniques based on the terrain. And that's going to be more efficient no matter what sport you're in, whether
Yep.
you're cycling and pounding a hard gear on the flats, or spinning, or if you're Nordic skiing and you're doing the different techniques of like a V2 on the flats, and climbing in a V1 skate technique. For skimo, we're definitely seeing a lot of different techniques based on the athlete's preferences. I mean, you can look at somebody like Remy Bonnet for a vertical, and he's out for a jog. I mean, he literally
Yeah.
runs up the
Yep.
entire course.
Yep.
Um, that doesn't work for everybody because that sort of output is incredibly hard.
Mm.
But we are seeing more of that jogging technique to increase the cadence and increase the pace.
Yep.
When it is like slightly flat, or a short uphill, like little bursts of that. And then we're also seeing more of a Nordic technique and those nice long glides, coming on like the really flat areas. There was actually one of the first World Cup vertical, in Courchevel, that actually ended with almost a downhill skin. And to
Mm.
watch the
Yeah, I saw
different
that.
techniques
Yeah.
coming into that were remarkable. Those who are able to kind of roll their edges, and or maybe they offset their skins. That's another thing we're seeing, is people taking
Mm.
skins that are
Yep.
slightly narrower and offsetting them. So if you roll your ankles on the inside, you can glide more on the base, and then you can flatten out your skin for grip.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, all sorts of different techniques.
Yeah. Wow. That last one, that's pretty interesting. Having part of the ski being more exposed so you could glide a
Mhm.
bit more. Yeah, the art of downhill skinning, folks. It's underappreciated, but very important and can be fun. Good way to fall when you're just getting used to it.
I have, even on the World Cup, on a very flat vertical course, seen athletes offset their skin so much that they skate, and they can skate ski on the inside of their
Mm,
edges,
yeah.
on the flats, and then they switch to a skinning technique.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I was just going to say, Sarah, are you encouraging, even at that highest level, athletes to maybe do some ongoing Nordic training to, whether it's a classic technique with just really feeling that glide, like you said, maybe skating, it seems like the World Cup race is not so much skate specific, but some of these grand tours and stuff, there may be long sections where you're skating on the skimo gear.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a hard sport to pick up if you're not already familiar with it. But I think those who have a background in some Nordic skiing definitely continue to train that way, and you see a lot of athletes training on roller skis in the off season,
Mm,
which is obviously a
yep.
Nordic type skill.
Yeah. Yeah. What other off season, is it trail running? Is it cycling? Do you see any of those as better than another, or are there athletes who are chasing snow, going to the southern hemisphere, training on glaciers, whatever, so that they're on skis year round?
I'd say the majority of the athletes, certainly on the US team, and from what I've seen in Europe, try to do a different sport in the summer for cross training. And typically
Mhm.
that's some sort of trail running, mountain running. I think a lot of the athletes are bikers. A lot of the younger athletes coming up are coming from a mountain bike background. So probably the majority of
Mm.
biking, a
Mhm.
little bit of running and hiking to stay in shape. Whereas our senior athletes, I'd say, are more on the running side.
Yep, interesting. Question I get sometimes from athletes, like, what's better if I want to really focus on that skiing in the winter? What's better, running, biking, something else? What do you tell people, or you know, or does it matter? Does it depend?
Yeah, I think it depends on the athlete. I do think that some running is really valuable for that weight loading uh, activity, and the downhill running to build your quads that you might not
Yeah.
actually get with biking. But biking certainly builds up your endurance, and I'm a big
Yep.
fan of diversity in sports to prevent injury and burnout.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
do think kind of those three, like the trail running, biking, and skiing, certainly go hand in hand.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I love it. I agree. And fun too. Don't forget, especially man, in that off season of not your main sport, the fun, the human connection, the outdoors, like that's probably just as important. And maybe that gets back another question about the mental performance, Sarah. Does Team USA have a mental performance coach? Or maybe are athletes working with mental performance coaches on their own? Maybe are there private coaches providing some of that? And then maybe furthermore, are Team USA Skimo athletes, are they using sort of US Olympic resources like, let's say, the Olympic Training Center, those kind of things?
Yeah, that's a touchy subject. um,
Okay.
we don't have a lot of resources there. But as far as the sports psychology, athletes are definitely tapping into that aspect of it. It's a grueling
Hmm.
season to be on top of your game, traveling around Europe,
Yeah.
managing your life, managing a sport at this level when you really don't have a lot of support and funding. So added,
Yeah.
additional emotional stress. It really is hard to perform your best. And I think athletes are finding that working with a sports psychologist is really helpful. The US OPC has given us access to or connection to one of their sports psychologists. I do know that
Mm.
others are working with private sports psychologists. Again, that's something that is very personal, and I think you have to find the right fit for
Yeah.
that. But regarding your other aspect, our team does not have access to any sort of Olympic training facility.
Okay. And is that a hope? For those who don't know, Skimo new to the Olympics about a year from now, 2026. So, well, hopefully, an ongoing thing. It
Yeah,
is. I mean, I would assume that this Skimo community would hope that become. I don't know. I think cyclists, like
absolutely.
whatever. They got this training camp, and you get the juniors, and they all go to Colorado Springs, and they do these things and testing and whatever. Like, you know, yeah, let's do it for Skimo, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're working hard to do that. We're actually connecting with some of the sports physiologists in the Intermountain region to get a program set up for our athletes and testing. And the Skimo organization is making a lot of progress with that. Yes, we are hoping to be in the Olympics in 2026. I mean, Skimo is in the Olympics. Our
Yeah.
team is doing our best to get a spot there, and so far
Yep.
succeeding well. And then after that, I think there's going to be a lot of growth for our organization, and a lot more resources for the future.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah, it's super, just from me and sort of a fan standpoint, it's really fun to follow and exciting and very clear that, like, whether it's you as a coach or the other USSMA staff or even the athletes, I mean, It's going on passion right now, right? There's not, like you said, there's not sort of too much funding. Getting a ski tech, like that's huge.
Mhm.
Hopefully you can imagine, there'll be this multiple ski techs and massage, and maybe you imagine world tour cycling. You got like you got a cook who's making the really good plated meals and all that. You can
Yeah.
imagine maybe these things are coming.
And other teams do have that, right? So the tricky
Mm,
part is, this sport in Europe and this sport in other countries is funded by their national federation, their government, and that's not really how sports roll in the U.S. I think we're doing really well this year. We've had quite a lot of private donations and funding, which has allowed us to establish more of a team. And so, at least when our team
yep,
shows up to the races, we have a tent and we have a bicycle there for warming up.
yep,
We have a very well-known, experienced coach, who is there. We have his ski tech. We're bringing on a physiotherapist for massage in the next two World Cups to see if that really helps our athletes as well. So,
yep.
as the money rolls in, we put it right back to our athletes and see what we can do. But comparatively to the other teams that roll in on a coach bus with all the things that look like a cycling team, yeah, it's an uphill battle for sure.
Yes, that is those things matter. Like that is hard. And I wonder, does Team USA, I mean, is there maybe a sense of there could be something inspiring about being the underdog? I don't know. Is there do they have that sense, would you say?
I think that's always, certainly, right. That's been the perception, is we're the underdog, right? But there's really no reason we need to be. We've got a very large population, of uh, of
Yeah.
athletes,
Mm,
right? We should be able to draw from
yep.
this and,
Yep.
and get there. And
Yeah.
talking to some of the athletes, this first go around, I think I think maybe the rest of the world is kind of on their toes of like, wow, the US is catching up. Like Cam Smith put up the fastest qualifying time in the mixed relay. And I think people were a little bit like taken back, like, oh man, I think the US is they're here to play and they're
Yeah.
catching up quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Go Cam. Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to the other athletes, tell us more about your role, Sarah, head of sport. Are you actually coaching anyone in terms of putting the programming in on Training Peaks, analyzing data, or is it more logistical? Are you going? We're talking right now, maybe approximately halfway through the World Cup season for
Mhm.
this winter. Are you? Do you go to Europe? Are you on these things, or is it more from afar? Like, what are you actually doing?
Well, I spend a lot of time right here on my computer, organizing
Okay.
things
Yep.
with a map of Europe and trying to move all the chess pieces in the right place of athletes here and coaches there and all of
Wow,
that.
that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly wasn't, what I trained myself to do, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as coaching, I still coach the Silver Fork Skimo team, so I have the youth athletes that I
Yep.
personally coach, who are quickly coming up. But no, as far as the coaching of the senior athletes, we leave that to Oscar, um, over in Europe. And most of the senior athletes also have like their personal coaches that are writing their personal
Okay.
plans, and then Oscar
Yep.
helps fill in the gaps and helps organize when we're actually at the World Cup events. Um,
Nice.
and so, yeah, I'm doing a lot of logistics, which is sometimes more challenging than I ever thought. Um, Getting hotels and travel and making sure the
Yeah.
races are booked that way. In addition to trying to build the sport in general, right? So there's like the elite athlete program, on the World Cup, but to get there and to get our sport going, we've got to be from the ground up. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to spend time working with other youth clubs and development programs to encourage the growth of the sport, encourage the competition level, help grow skimo in the U.S. Right? Because if we don't have skimo in the U.S., we're not going to have it over. We're not going to send athletes to Europe.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that, but I am spending actually quite a bit of time coming up over in Europe. I leave next week actually, to go over to the World Cup in Bormio, and then I'll be over there for the World Championships, where Silver Fork Skimo has 13 athletes going. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that, but also be there to help coach and organize as best I can. And then I do go over one more time to the Youth World Cup. And this is something I've been doing for the past couple of years with mostly athletes from our team, but now excited to welcome a couple athletes from Colorado as well. And so I think we will have another like a dozen athletes going over to the Youth World Cup to gain more experience.
Yeah. Oh man, so cool, so good, so cool at any age to put on a USA jersey, but especially for kids, like, man, that sticks you with you, and that right there. That's something to stay in the sport and just a cool life experience. I want to hear more about Silver Fork in a minute, but first of all, that topic of just building the sport, whether that's through U.S. Skimo Association, through private race directors, the brands involved, the athletes, the enthusiasts like me. What do we need? Do we need more events? Do we need more? Look like what you've done, Sarah, with the powder keg event in Utah has been a marquee event for a long time. So that's a great example. We have some cool kind of recognizable events here in Colorado, maybe in some other states, maybe some on the East Coast. Like, what do we need? Do we need like a national cup? Do we need, some, I don't know, junior point series so kids get excited about it? What are the ideas that are out there?
Yeah, coming into this, those are all my ideas. Like, how do we build this? It's certainly not going to be done by just one person, and it takes a team to make any of these races go off. And what's tricky is like USA Skimo doesn't own any of these races, right? Like these races are put on by private race organizers, individual race organizers. And they're working with their local organizing committee and their mountains and doing an awesome job. And then I think what we need to grow is the collaboration and the relationship between USA Skimo and these local organizers to create something that
Mm,
benefits everybody, that ultimately benefits the growth of the sport, but that can help support these race organizers because it's no easy task to put on a ski mountaineering race with all the elements and uh, yeah, course setting and organization.
yeah. Hmm. Cool. And what about Silver Creek? Going to some of the races myself, I get out there. I remember the first time I was, whatever, warming up, and I see all these like kids go past me, and they got these matching Silver Creek Skimo I'm like, who are these kids? And these are races in Colorado. They've come from Utah. Who knows? Ridden a bus for 10 hours or whatever. And at first I was intrigued, and then Sarah, I start racing, and like all these kids just they're taking it to me, and they're like winning, winning the overall, whether it's the vertical or the individual or
Yeah.
high school kids, 15, 16, 17. It's amazing. Like, what was the origin of that? How did you get that going? Why is it flourishing? Is it because you're, I sometimes I think like close enough to a big city of Salt Lake, you got enough people and enough sort of culture. What else should we know? And maybe furthermore, how do we, let's say we live somewhere else or a smaller place, or here I am, Salida, Colorado, like, man, I want to see kids skiing uphill. And like, it's kind of an uphill battle to get them to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely not every kid that wants to do it. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah.
I think we definitely have the benefit of a large metropolitan area to draw from, but I don't think that's like a make it or break it thing. Certainly maybe our
Hmm.
our numbers are a bit higher because of that, but it really comes down to word of mouth. And like once you start with like one or two, cool families, cool kids, they
Yeah.
bring their friends, and then it grows from there. One difference that probably our team is from some of the other teams that I've talked to in the development of that team is ours. We're a nonprofit now. We started as just a private little club,
Mm.
but very much so community based. I don't have a van or I've got at this point we need a school bus to travel to Colorado races. I don't personally take on that responsibility of drop your
Mm,
kid off and we take them to all the races. I know a lot of other ski programs function that way, and it probably works for some. But I think for our program, that's been one of the nice things is the entire family, for the most part, is involved.
yeah,
The parents are out there like touring, right? Whatever. They love to come to the races. And you've probably seen now like a bunch of masters,
yeah,
the parents in the same outfits, right? Because
yeah.
they're part of it. They just want to do it. So I think that is certainly a way that our team has been differentiated and has grown well is the community aspect as opposed to drop your kid off at ski school and we'll take it from there.
That's pretty cool. And these kids who are going over to the Junior Worlds, World Cup, etc. How does that work? Do they have to qualify? Do they have to meet certain standards?
Yeah, so um, there's two things, and every other year there's the World Championships, and that's what we're coming up against this March. And the team was just announced actually just yesterday. They all got their emails of invitation. And there were qualification criteria. Two of the spots per discipline were given to first and second place at the national championships in that discipline, and the other two spots, there's 4 quota spots per race, were given to based off of your national team ranking. And there's this whole ranking system that's up on the line. It's rather confusing, but based off of points that you gather throughout the year at different races.
Yep. Nice. When you're coaching these kids, Sarah, are you using Training Peaks or another system to create workouts and programming, looking at data, heart rate, VAM, all that? Is it more just we're out here as a group, let's do a workout together? Are you coaching them year round? Does it vary from athlete to athlete? Kind of, what's your system with that?
Yeah, I'm not that sophisticated as far as coaching goes. I also find that with these young athletes, they don't need all of that. That's too much. They'll
Yeah.
spin out. They'll spin out if they're
Yep.
looking at their heart rate every day and somebody's telling
Yeah.
them to do that. So to be honest with you, I have a very simple Google document that has what we're doing. And I specify it for a few athletes who want a little bit more, but a lot of it is like, you know, I want you to go free ski for 2 hours here. I want you to ride the lifts.
Nice.
I want you to actually
Yeah.
go downhill skiing, have some fun.
Yeah.
Like we'll do intervals at practice.
Yep.
But to be honest, some of these kids, like the biggest piece is pulling them back, right? Like I
Yes.
don't want you running around for 6 hours, 6 days a week, which they have the
Yeah.
energy to do.
Yep.
So it's more of like reeling it in. But yeah, no, I don't use Training Peaks, but primarily it's just because I don't have the I haven't have had that skill yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it
Yeah,
seems what you're doing though, Sarah, is working, and I love that.
yeah,
Truly, I love that philosophy, especially for kids. Like, let them have fun, let them be kids. Let them learn to like exercise by feel. I
yeah,
think that's a step you can miss if a kid too soon is doing power, heart rate, lactate, whatever. Like that can be too like you just got to learn to go by feel, like and a lot of the best athletes do that anyway, well into
yeah.
their adult career.
I mean, more of our like older athletes are wearing heart rate monitors now, which I think is helpful.
Hmm.
Because I mean, you probably skied with kids like everything's zone 5. It's either they're going all out or they're
Yeah.
not going, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
trying to get them to understand the benefit of going slow sometimes.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think our key with this team is keeping it fun.
Yeah.
Um, you've probably
Yeah.
seen some of the
Nice.
videos out there on our well, first of all, the Instagram is also run. I don't know if you've seen the Silver Fork Instagram, but that's run by the
No, I
athlete.
haven't. Oh
Yeah,
no.
so
Oh,
they
okay.
they do a
Cool.
great job. I
Yeah.
won't take
Nice.
credit
If
for that.
if people if listeners want to check that out, is that what Silver Creek Schemo, or do you know what
So
it's called?
so Silver Fork Skimo.
Okay, Silver Fork. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it. With I can tell you're excited about coaching youth, Sarah. How did that come about? Did you know, have you always been interested? Is or was your own child into it?
No, my own child is only 8 years old.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so
Cool.
yeah, he has a pair of backcountry skis, but again,
Yep.
only keeping it very, very fun, very short and very
Yeah.
fun. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, no, I didn't get into coaching, or I didn't get into coaching skimo. Really, that was not my ultimate goal. It was more of, a couple of kids were interested, and I started skiing with them, and it blossomed from there. I have coached certain things my whole life, really. Well, my adult life. I actually ran a riding stables with 100 riders a day and 40 horses, and talk about multitasking,
Yeah.
and managing stress levels. That certainly set me up for this. So I did that for, gosh, all the way through my 20s. I was a big rider back east,
Yeah.
and then to the barn. So yeah, been coaching, doing
Cool.
that. And I coach water skiing. I coach sailing in the summers. So I guess it's always been part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good for you. What do you still do any riding now? And did you have a specialty when you were competing?
I evented, so the 3-day events where you do cross country dressage and show jumping,
Yep.
and I rode and did the same thing. I competed out here in Utah until my son was born, um, and then here and there, but not. It takes a little bit too much time now.
Wow. Well, this is all really good stuff, Sarah. Really appreciate it. Pump for you with Team USA with the Silver Fork, kids and groups. Sorry, I called it Silver Creek,
That's
Creek Fork. I don't know.
it's all
There's I
good.
guess there's forks and creeks. Maybe that's where I messed it up.
Right, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Silver
but
Fork is actually it was, not terribly creative, but Silver Fork, I live right at the base of Silver Fork Drainage in Big Cottonwood Canyon, so I ski up there
mm,
every day, right out
yeah.
my window here. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And is that still going like like you said, the whatever Tuesday, Thursday night races? You guys
Yeah.
have those things? Yeah. And how many
Yes.
what does that look like? You know, I wish we had that here, in my small town. I guess that's what you live for a living where there's not many people, but
Yeah,
what's that like? Is I'm thinking of like the Tuesday night worlds ride in Durango or something, is it that
right?
kind of thing that's going on?
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, like I got into this, like Andy and Jason Duray started the Tuesday night races at Brighton. There were like 15 people there, and you won like a pie from the grocery store at the end.
I
Like
love it.
a pumpkin
Yeah,
pie
yeah,
from Smith's grocery store. And that has evolved. Now there's Utah Skimo, which is the nonprofit local organization that puts on the Tuesday night races. I believe there's 6 Tuesday night races throughout the season. And, races is a little bit loose. They're not timed events. They set a course. It encourages anybody of any level to come out. But on average, there's 150 to 200 racers out there. And then we go inside the lodge afterwards. Most of these resorts stay open specifically for this. They offer, food and beverage, and it has a big raffle, and it's a big social scene. So
yeah,
you go like warm up for a half an hour, you work really hard for an hour, and then you go inside and have a beer and hang out with your friends.
yeah. Oh, cool. Sounds fun. Any advice, Sarah, for someone if they're listening to this? Maybe they don't want to do a double skin rip, or or offset the skins or roll them or whatever. But maybe
Yeah.
they're just like, man, this sounds fun. It sounds like a cool community, something I want to try. Like, what are the first steps? Is it the gear? Some people feel that the gear is kind of a hurdle. Is it the access? Like, what's your advice just for someone who wants to give this all a go?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on what you're getting into it for, some are getting into it for the social scene, some the exercise portion of it, or maybe a mixture of both. One thing that is popping up more and more are kind of master's programs. If you're talking about adults,
Mm,
we started a
hmm.
master's program this year, and I you know, wasn't really keen on doing it, but now I'm really psyched. So now we have
Nice.
a handful of people, whether they're parents, but honestly, now I've got people in their like late 20s, early 30s who want that social
Yeah.
scene, want to get into it, and want a little bit of structure. And so
Yeah.
I'd say looking for uh, the local races or events going on. I know Colorado has a number of different ones, at A Basin, and Boulder has quite a big scene. The Pacific Northwest is really growing with these kind of groups popping up. And then again, here in Utah, both on the Park City side and in Big Cottonwood. I mean, we're literally right
Yeah.
on the other side of the hill from each other. But I'd say the gear doesn't matter as much. Eventually it does, but just getting out there and going uphill and getting into it, it's a good place to start.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. You know what sounds cool to me about that kind of master's program? The not only, of course, the exercise, the fitness, maybe the competition, but the social side and the team side. I think that's something that can be hard as you go through your adult years and you got your work, and many of us have parenting and these things. Like like we want to be on, especially those of us who've been athletes, we want to be on a damn team,
Yeah.
and that's like super cool. Like, hey, we got the uniform, or like we go to practice together, having that rhythm, that's huge for adults. I would highly recommend that if you can find that, join or
Yeah,
maybe start it, like maybe that's what I need
exactly.
to start.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
maybe just start it. Yeah, I was really kind of surprised, but I think it's really fun because then you feel like you know somebody if you go to a race, or
Yeah.
you've got someone to ask all those questions to if you don't know how to
Yep.
wax your skins, and now you're part of a team that somebody can teach you that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice, nice. How about second to last question for you? Any are you racing? Do you have, obviously, like, you're you're coordinating everyone else's race. That's, that's a big victory in itself. But like, do you still have things out there like, hey, here's this thing I'm excited about, or I'm training for, or a goal, or is it all fun? Like, where are you at with that kind of stuff these days?
Yeah, racing this season is going to be a little tough. There's a lot of travel involved, and I don't think my
Yep.
fitness will quite be there. That being said, I still like to get out, try to ski at least a couple times a day, or a couple times a week, in addition to practice. But
Yep.
the past couple of years, I've been really into trying the bigger objectives, like for racing.
Mm,
I've gone over to
yeah.
Europe with a friend and raced some of the grand courses, the Tour de Ruder,
Nice.
the Mezzalama. We were hoping to do one of them this year, but I think with all the travel, that might have to put that on the back burner. But this year, I feel like the only race I'm signed up for is the Kulshan race on Mount Baker. Again, we did that last year, which is like the first glaciated teams race, Skimo race in the U.S. And those guys do a really great job of putting on that race. Last year was their inaugural race. The weather didn't quite cooperate to get high up on the mountain, but they still did a great job. So, yeah, our team is headed back there again this May, and hopefully uh, can can get more of the mountain in.
Yeah, good for you. That's great. Have you had, of those European Grand Tours, have you had a favorite one, or one that you would recommend to people if they're thinking about going over for the first time to try one of those?
They're all just spectacular. I mean, the scene,
Yeah.
the camaraderie, the atmosphere is next to none. I mean, there's nothing here that compares to that. There's thousands of people, and the whole town comes out. Um, the multi-day racing is challenging.
Yeah.
You're right, like the Pyramenta this year, 4 days of racing. The
Yeah.
the Tour de Ruder was 3 days of racing. Um, I feel like it's a little easier to suffer for one day, like one
Yeah.
long day. So the Mezzalama last year was really cool. Pretty spectacular views, very long day, but well worth it.
Yeah. Oh, good for you. That's great that you're doing those and those stage races. I love the community atmosphere because you race, but then you got to hang out and kind of suffer, try to recover. But inevitably, you're sitting at some table with whatever these guys from France and Italy, and here's the women from wherever Slovenia, and it's fantastic. It's a great way
Mhm.
to connect with people from around the world.
Yeah, definitely. And typically when you're on the race course, you end up next to some of those people for uh, a number of hours. And
That's right.
at
Yeah.
some point, if you're back where I am, our goals are to make the cutoffs so we can keep racing, which so
Yep.
far we've been successful about. But past that, I think it's more of um, a, a motivation to finish rather than like our placement.
Yeah, I love it though. It's still competing. My goal is usually to like try to catch like here's the 10 guys who pass me every single downhill. I'm like, can I keep getting with them at the top? And then we laugh about it every night at dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fun. Sarah, appreciate it so much. Great job with your work as head of sport with Silver Fork, everything else you have going on. You're doing a great job for the sport, moving things forward. Anywhere if people want to follow the stuff that's going on with you, is it the USA Skimo? Is it the Silver Fork Instagram? Anywhere else they should look for your stuff out there?
No, I mean, I personally don't put my own stuff out there too much. So if you're going to find what I'm doing, it's probably going to be on either of those.
Nice, cool.
Yeah.
Sarah Cookler, final question: why should people ski uphill?
Only if they want to. But you should ski uphill. I think it gives you so much for not only like the obvious physical endurance aspects, but to clear your mind, get out there, think about what's important to you, and enjoy the mountains. That's really why we're all doing this is to enjoy the mountains.